well, the play is amazing, and the central character is stunning, and she's a part of the theater canon as one of the roles that you must play if you're a woman in theater. She's like the female Hamlet essentially, and I just loved her, and she's so complex and beautiful and horrifying and wonderful, and I knew that bringing that kind of character to the screen would be really exciting. And then, I really love, the tradition of like murder mystery films in an English country house. And I thought like melding that sort of tradition with this theater tradition would make a really cool, interesting story, really interesting film. And then I also like one-location movies. So like Festin is a huge one where I was really inspired by just what happens if one person decides to make a choice to say something. How does that affect the rest of the night? And that was all the things together that brought me to Hedda. I don't know when it happened, but, usually in Hedda, it's this one woman and these three men that sort of represent different parts of her psyche. Like, that's a common read of the film. But Lovborg, he's kind of, he's a bit one could say whiny. But he has his struggles, and he's a great character. But I was just thinking, like, if he were a woman, like, what he's doing would be so hard. Like, this idea of, like, not being heard, not being listened to when you're brilliant. I just thought, well, as a woman, that really speaks to the themes of the play. So if Lovborg were a woman, it just opens up this other thematic landscape that I thought was really interesting. So instead of, one woman and three men, it's three women, and how these three women try to find agency in this world. And so the 1950s, I was like, this is kind of the most restrictive world. And also it fits really nicely into that like English country house period piece, merchant ivory tradition that I really wanted to speak to as well.
My trailer was filled with photographs of my grandmothers. I just thought so much about them and pulled so much from them in terms of what I observed from them. And then I think just more widely, really looking into sort of the manners of the time. And I'm also American, so I think sort of trying to find where it was placed. There's so much, I think, in terms of just in society that is very different than how we approach it as Americans. But I think particularly UK at that time, and just lots of watching and listening and observing. But certainly it really started with both of my grandmothers. Both of them actually really reigned so supremely for me as a child, because my paternal grandmother had really advanced Alzheimer's when I was little. So I was always trying to search for the woman that she was. I never had access to her. So it was always through photographs, and they were all from that time, from that period. And both of my grandmothers, I think, were women that were really hemmed in by expectations of the time. One is like a stay-at-home mother and wife, and I could always tell that life never fit too squarely on her. And that was just like both of them for me. It really began there. But yeah, a lot of the manners of women at the time, how they held themselves, how they their tension, how they hid all these things that they probably wanted and knew that they could never have. I felt terrified. I felt happily terrified. It's I didn't go to drama school, but I think for so many, I remember someone saying to me, an actress saying to me, "You always have to have your Hedda ready." And I was like, wow, that's very cool. But I think the truth is, for a woman, as Nia said, there are very few parts. If you look at sort of the history and the canon, there's very few for us that are those ones that you just strive for. But I really enjoyed the idea of being a part of a tradition. I think that felt really ripe to me, and to get to engage with people that have interpreted it. Like, I loved talking to Nina about her time playing Hedda, and I loved watching everything I could get my hands on and seeing what people did with the material. I think that's what makes these plays so tremendous, is you can continue to engage with them for centuries. And I also knew that we were doing something, and Nina says so well, this is its own thing. I also felt like what we're trying to say with Hedda, Imogen's work as as Thea and Nina's work as Eileen is as much. They're sort of this triptych, as you said, this trifecta that express how women sort of try to gain agency and also contend with the rage that kind of happens being in a female body. For me, they're as much like they are a part of the performance too. My performance happens in relation to them and began with Nia's brilliant work, which is on the page.
I just remember the moment I read her script, I was so amazed that no one had ever thought about this before, because it makes so much sense. And it, like Nia said, it's all of a sudden you have these three women that represent a stage in a female life and the struggle of a female life in three different, it's like a triptych. And it's somewhat one woman who fights herself, one that strives, that is brilliant. All of them are brilliant, but you feel inhibited because society tells you permanently you can't do that, you're not good enough, don't even try, don't. And Eileen is the one, and that made so much sense to me, who dares to do it, who dares to somewhat live the life of a man and with all its freedom, but struggles with it at the same time, and that's why she became an alcoholic. But with living that life, she had I think, most fantastic moment in life with Hedda, and she misses that craziness, that wildness, that moment of freedom, of exploring yourself, also sexually, and I think that is a theme in Eileen, and it is with Eilert, but he's a bit of a wimp. And Eileen all of a sudden becomes this, I think her manuscript is about that, about female sexuality. And she really wants to bring that out to the world and change the world, change the perception of female sexuality. And she has kind of awoken Thea. And Thea now is somehow, for me, I think Thea is the one who does it. Out of these two, she's the bravest one, because she just does it. She dares, just changing her whole life around and finding her own. And these two are maybe the trailblazers, and she can step into it silently. I mean, look at her, and we're fighting it out, But what I loved about the script and about Eileen is that it's also done with. She knows she's going into the bed, and she knows what she's facing, and she somehow loves it and enjoys it. So there's so many moments about that. And I had never thought about it, and I had never seen it in this play. And that was amazing to me. And it also, we were talking a lot, Tessa and me, about what it does to the character Hedda, that she wants to destroy another woman who dares doing that. It's a different thing than letting a man, yeah. And that gave this very special tension and a different vulnerability to Hedda, I found. It's a bit more desperate because she still has to do a cruel thing. She doesn't know quite why, and that's what I love about it. And then I stop. That you can't. I'm just so, as you can tell, I'm amazed by this by this material. So no, I just love that you can never explain any of these three women, and that's what I love. It raises questions, and you can discuss a lot, and it's just new. It's new, and I love it.
Yeah, it's just great. It's great when sort of an arc is that sort of formulaic in a way, to have it laid out for you, but an essential part of the jigsaw for Hedda and Eileen. There's something, as you say, it's sort of like very fragile and almost like just gently punk, but she'd never call herself that. But what she achieves by saving her own life and going in pursuit of a sort of intellectual and sexual life after that is just, for that time, and incredibly impressive, and a very complicated person. But I felt with all of our scenes together, it was really fun. It was really dangerous, because these two women are just completely unpredictable, and all those kind of small betrayals that are happening, especially with Hedda. They've known each other since they were at school. There's a schoolgirl element to it that's still very present now. And then the charge between Eileen and Thea, I loved the scenes that was like sport. Because do you remember the scene where it was when you first had the drink and the three of us are standing together and just all the different energies? It was just really fun kind of playing that, and we did it many, many times as well. But but it was just really...
It was great every time.
Fantastic. It was just really a really great part to play. Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, well, I had read the play a long, long time ago and was very familiar with it. And when the call came in to have a chat with Nia about it, I thought, Judge Bragg, yeah, okay, he's kind of a little bit, there somewhere in the play. But I always felt that there was something more to be explored. And when I read the script, I went, oh, shit. This is kind of it, really. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I was just so happy that, she actually wanted me on board to play the damn thing. To be a man of color in the 50s, where you've had to conform in so many ways already to get to a point where you are a judge, there was so much in him that I felt needed to come out in this piece, wherein he gets played with and he's been played with. Now he gets to play with. He gets to manipulate. He gets to, call the shots. And that was something that was, for me, quite interesting to sort of tease out when, there were lots of scenes with the one person that he couldn't ultimately win against, which was Hedda. Everyone else, there was the fact that, the Loveboard character is now a woman. He got to almost flirt with, and there was no competition in a way that there is in the play almost. He had a power over Lovborg in a way that he kind of didn't in the play, not as much. And so there were all these elements where he was in charge. He's playing with George. He's manipulating him. He's, not a very good friend to George at all when he's, trying to, with his, and they, but then, love you, dude. And so there's all these areas where he has absolute autonomy in a place where he just didn't have it in the play. So I thought it was really a really great adaptation. It's a true adaptation. It's not just from theatre to film. This is a piece within itself, and I think the character definitely stands out on its own and was, expanded and explored in a way that I could never have imagined.
Because I remember, that Matthew McFadden energy was something, just that sort of quiet, desperate ambition that can just be kind of mean and cruel, and he's kind of capable of anything. And I thought that was such a fascinating way to approach George, because as you say, the productions I'd seen and read of Hedda, he was that dusty older man, and you think, God, it's so clear from the off that this woman isn't interested. She's just doing it. But it's super interesting to go, right, well, let's make him not that. Let's see what else he can be. And I just loved it being set in this time period, what that does to a very privileged man who's probably been brought up to believe you're better than women. They just belong below you in society. And these three incredible women throughout the piece just constantly, he doesn't even realize he's being played with, but it was such a fun, quiet anger that I wanted to sort of tap into of George. And I remember there's these two stage directions that Nia wrote about George that I loved so much. One is a line from Catherine Hunter. She says, "That boy's never happy. He will never be happy." And then there's the scene where the fireworks are going off, and it says George looks around and everyone is in this moment. They're enjoying it so much, and he feels nothing. And I thought that was my kind of hook into him of like, he has everything but still feels like he has nothing. He's numb. He doesn't even know, and he doesn't understand these incredible women around him. He just wants to be them, own them, crush them, bridle them, and sort of and control them. But hilariously, he's just nowhere near that. Yeah.
I just, emphasizing Hedda's tragedy, there was something about the two of them. I was like, what if there's a version of this relationship that could work? What if there's a version of a life where, she could choose happiness in this way, he could choose to be satisfied, and they don't choose it. And I think in a way, it's like in the same way that, these two other women are facets of Hedda, so are the men. And they're all just scrambling for power, all scrambling to feel whole and feel happy. And what they should be doing is reaching towards each other and trying to figure out how to love better. But what they do is try to get power. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. And that's why a lot of people are so unhappy. And so these 5 people are they're all trapped in their own, really. And I think Hedda, and that's what I see when I see Hedda, and that's why I wanted every character for it to be clear that that's what they're going through as well.
And there's that great, do you remember that amazing first scene? And it was one of my favorites between when we're getting ready. And George says to Hedda, this is what you wanted, right? You're happy. Like, you wanted this. I've given you this. And don't I look happy? For me, I was like, that's like the piece. It's sort of the masks everyone wears, the things that we think we want that we don't have. And we think, if I just had that, I'll be happy. If I could just change this, I'd be happy. And all of that just in that dynamic. And interestingly, as Nia said, like making them kind of, this could work. Like 2 people at the beginning of a film going, this is what you wanted, right? I want you, this is what you need to be happy. Yeah, don't I look happy? You're like, that's so many marriages and relationships that we all know,